welcome to another episode of Integrity Talks. I'm Kia Johnson and this is my co-host Charissa Bloomberg. Well, today in our midst we have a South African comedian. He's an actor, he's also an author, and he's featured on the British panel show Mock the Week. Now, I've actually had the pleasure of listening to him on a radio show many a time. Usually I'm laughing like fits of hysteria in my car, often like a hyena because, well, he's just so funny. And then I had the pleasure of actually seeing him while he was emceeing at a cocktail event, and I must say he had me captured since the word go. So who can I be speaking about? Well, it can only be Nik Rabinowitz. Welcome to the show, Nik.
Thank you.
Dun, dun,
Were you
dun.
about to applaud, Charissa?
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
I'm just so excited to have you here.
We even have a studio audience, but they didn't choose to applaud it.
They were told to keep quiet.
They were told to keep
Oh, were
very
they?
quiet.
Well, they're doing
Yes.
what they're
And
told.
thank you.
That has integrity.
So, Nik, I think we'd like to actually start out with finding out what projects are you involved with at the moment? What are you doing?
Well, given that we are we're in the midst of a corona pandemic, nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I actually had planned to write a new show by April and perform it at the Baxter Theatre, but I'm quite glad that I did not go through with those plans. A couple of months ago, I thought, no, I'm actually going to take it easy for a while and see what grabs me and what I want to do next, which is right now. Well, there's one. I'm taking it week by week. Next week, I'm meant to be at a conference. Who knows? Is it going to be cancelled? We're not sure. But anyway, it's great to be here on, what do you call this, Bloomberg TV? Or
That's actually got a nice ring to it, Bloomberg TV. Yeah, I know.
yeah, it's 15 years since I worked with Rosen. That's also great to be back here. I have fond memories of her whispering in my ear, which I can't actually, they're not in her ears today, which I would have liked to have heard die in my ear.
She's smiling in the background there.
Nik, please don't use that accent. It's condescending. That was her favorite thing to say to me.
It sounds like die.
Yeah. Nik, you know I've been doing the happy dance ever since I heard that you were coming.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, okay, now you
That's why our feet are so sore. Yeah.
That's the heels.
No.
Nik, but I just want to, so grateful again, but I just want to tell you we've got a lot in common.
Really?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. I just have to bust in. When I was on Cape Talk on Thursday, surprise, surprise, look who came after me on Cape Talk. So super excited about that. And I got to hear the other side of Nik. And when we were on Expresso, do you remember a while ago, I think it was a middle eight, I shouldn't say what it was. What was it? You were doing a show, we were on Expresso together.
Yes.
But you know what touched me the most? We know that you're hysterically funny, but you walked me to the car and there was this like serious side of Nik. And I think one expects a comedian to be funny all the time. And I think we already started talking integrity there and I'm like, you are deep and thoughtful. And that stayed with me and that's stuck.
Yes. Well, I hope that has allowed the audience now to manage their expectations. If they were expecting wild and funny, it's going to be deadly serious.
Yeah.
Hopefully without the deadly. I've washed my hands.
I know everyone wanted to hug you.
No hugging.
No hugging.
No shaking.
There was a lot of elbow going on and a lot of feet touching going on. Yeah.
But Nik, what we're trying to do here is raise consciousness on integrity and just to inspire everybody, the world, the universe, on what integrity means because people are very confused.
Right.
And we don't want them to be confused.
No, we don't.
No, we don't. So we want them to understand what it is and how. And even if they understand it, you know what, Nik? They don't actually even know how to apply it in their everyday life, in their work, in their businesses, in everything, in their communication, in their relationships. So having said this, I can't wait. This was coming later. I'm sorry, I can't wait.
No, it's fine.
Nik, we spoke a year ago. Wouldn't it be amazing, audience can applaud, if we had, I'm putting this out there, if we had a comedian show, a comic show on integrity, just as we can laugh about all the things and the corruption and the misunderstandings. I've got notes for you.
She's already pre-prepared everything,
as
as we know,
like a
Charissa.
year.
It's
And
klar, Butter.
I think I actually did contact
Yeah.
you a year ago. You were on the road and you said material. But anyway, I'm just putting it out
to
there.
answer that question, one of my favorite bits of comedy, and it's probably 15 minutes, I did it a couple of nights ago, is about a lack of integrity in a certain area of my life. which was very uncomfortable at the time and had quite an impact. And it was a lack of integrity inside of my marriage. We're still married.
With 3 beautiful children.
With 3 beautiful children, yes. And I kissed another woman on the mouth, but there was no tongue involved. But that's an excuse for having a lack of integrity and kissing another woman on the mouth, regardless of corona. And that turned into 15 minutes of comedy.
So that gave you material?
Yeah.
Yes. So here's the thing, one of the questions you wanted to ask you and ask people, how does it make you feel, as a psychologist need to ask you that, when we have lack of integrity and when it comes back to bite us? I mean, because, you just need one slip. We call it integrity lapses.
Lapses, yeah.
It can be an untruth. It can be an innocent kiss on the lips.
Yes.
It can be, but it's like you can lose everything that you've built up to in that moment.
Yes.
And it takes, once there's the lapse, it's so hard to actually get back. That's why we want to inspire people.
Well, in that moment, it was after a show in a small coastal town about an hour and a half from Cape Town. I don't want to mention the name, Her Highness. And after the show, I went out. I was with a friend of mine, and I thought, this is safe. We're all together. And then this woman had too much to drink. I dropped her at home. And in the driveway, this happened because I was driving her. And she looked at me and said, this is your opportunity. What? And I said, I was like, this is my opportunity to screw up my life and lose my wife and custody of the kids and the house and a lot of my cash. And probably 80% of my friends, because in the divorce, you keep 20%, but it's always the cuck friends. But to address what you're saying, the confusion, there's a lot of confusion, I think. And you talk about people not knowing what something is, because knowing doesn't necessarily make the difference. And I think in preparing for this, I was thinking about what is the confusion? And I think the confusion to a large extent is a function of collapsing integrity with other things. For the most part, we have integrity collapsed with morality. Yes. So we talk about integrity as doing the right thing. Yes. And it's if you distinguish integrity as itself, I don't expect anyone to have a dictionary here, but if you look at the definition for integrity in the dictionary, you're likely to find some version of the state or condition of being whole and complete, of sound condition, perfect, etc. So if you think about an object having integrity, like a bicycle wheel, for example, it's kind of simple to get. If a spoke or two is missing from the wheel lacks integrity, and therefore there's a certain workability to the wheel that's compromised. And as a result, if you're using that wheel just to ride down to the shop, you might be fine. But if you're using it on the Cape Town cycle tour, your performance will be compromised. Now, I'm starting to sound like this is...
Now, I've related this more to people than bicycle, wheel.
But the thing is, people get confused.
I'm just not sure where we're going, where we're cycling on this, where we're at.
So, as it relates to people,
very confused.
Because if you look at an object, and we don't think of ourselves in this way, because we get confused by morality. Morality is, we've sort of agreed upon or generally accepted standards of behavior in terms of desirability, undesirability, good, bad, right, or wrong. So we collapse all of that with integrity, and we don't look at it as the state of being whole and complete, honoring your word as yourself. And it's simply a function of being your word. And obviously being your word, we can unpack that.
Yes. Sure, that was very good, thank you. It's a long explanation. But Nick, you know where it started for me? I was training a group and sitting with an EXCO team, and they had integrity as their values on the wall. And I said, gentlemen, because they were all gentlemen, what does that mean? I don't know, doing the right thing. I'm like, and that started our whole thing. And then they asked me, Charissa, what does it mean? I'm like, I don't know either. So that started me looking up. I said to the MD at the time, we are all going on a course of integrity because none of us is clear. And how can you have that as a value? And you building, billions of rands projects, and we don't know what it means. How do you filter that down? So anyway, there wasn't a course written that I like because it's experiential, and hence the long story of a 5-year journey. I wrote a course. But here, experiential. Here's the thing, that if it's got to do the right thing, here's where the confusion comes in. What is the right thing to do? And the right thing for me is not necessarily the right thing for you. And that's where the confusion comes in. And then there's a whole scale of integrity. I can think I'm sitting on integrity 9 because I'm an integrity specialist. But I can be texting when I drive. I don't do that now anymore. But someone else can think maybe, Charissa, you're a 3 only because you know. So there's a whole scale, and it's extremely confusing. But for me, it is.
I'd like to maybe disagree with that, because I think people make it confusing so that they're off the hook for having integrity.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that is
And really,
well.
I mean, fundamentally, it's just getting back to basics with just being decent, living your life in a good way.
Yes.
And when that gut of yours says to you, but this that you're doing is wrong, it's not to take that
Well,
path
I would
and
even
decide
take
to
all of that
move.
out of the
Yeah.
conversation as well. I think that makes it confusing as well.
Is
What's
it?
decent? What's the right thing?
Okay.
Whereas if you look at, am I operating consistent with my word, with what I said, with what I said my principles and values are, with what I said I stand for, am I operating consistent with that or not? Then it becomes very clear. If it's like the decent thing, because the decent thing, when my mother says to me, will you please set up Friday night supper with somebody I don't really want to have Friday night supper with, but the decent thing for me to do is say yes. Right, which I did to placate my mother, but now I'm out of integrity with myself because I don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that.
However, you make it sound right in your head, and you say, "What's the right thing to do? I'm going to please mom. I'm going to, without trying to be, you don't want to be fake-eyed and hello, how are you? I can't stand you." But it's also trying to come, in your head. But
I just wish we could take right out of the conversation, because I think that's what confuses people. Because then we get into morality.
But if the two are linked.
They are linked, because integrity means if you're inside, ethics is what's generally agreed upon to be right, good, bad, etc. And as part of the society, we have, by participating, given our word to that.
Yes, but ethics, morality, integrity, all interconnected. But when you come to your ethics...
But collapsed is where the problem lies.
Yes. But now people don't understand the difference between ethics and integrity. Yes, this is going deep. but with the ethics as well, because here's your code of conduct, here's what you're allowed to do.
Here's as an organization what we've agreed upon as the standard of behavior.
But if you don't have the integrity, you're not going to do that.
Well, by joining that organization, you have given your word to that.
Yes.
Wow.
But exactly. But if you want to deviate, but where I come, it's a self-reflection.
But where are the jokes, Nick? We came here for the jokes.
I was also, how did you reading the mind? How did we get so deep so quick?
I think that's what I love most about you, is that for me personally, I just feel there's too many people that call themselves comedians, and when I say that, I mean that there's a couple of people in little pockets that I really appreciate, because I can value and respect what it is that they're doing. And comedy itself is just a mixture of so many things. It's not just about being funny, it's about getting into the depth of yourself. It's about experiences. It's about character building. It's about reaching that point and then sharing that with an audience and having them relate to that and engage in that and sometimes laugh at ourselves, because we kind of need that a little bit, Yeah. And you're just one of those comedians that I've always respected and admired for a very, very long time, before I even met you. But I remember meeting you, walking in the office. I mean, here's Nik Rabinowitz, this big star. You're there for me. And you're like, "Hi, Kia." And you always remembered my name and you always said hi. And that's such an important part of it as well, coming down to integrity. And I have to ask, in terms of just your
thing. Sorry, you asked the question, but you said something that I found interesting.
Just in terms of your humor itself, you're very satirical, and you kind of like poke that fun at a couple of things, and you go for it with everybody. And I love that about it, because there's so much authenticity inside that. And that's what made me connect with you. And I've actually got this personal relationship with you that you don't even know about, but it's because of just the comedy that you bring, because you bring me life comedy.
Yes.
And that's what we need, So have you, in terms of integrity itself, don't you find it tough being in the media industry and having everything come at you the way that it does, and then being like, okay, this is where I choose to be. This is my space. Yes. And I'm not going to allow all of that to influence my space and what I believe and what I'm going to do.
No.
There you go.
I don't find it tough. I think I was fortunate in that I started, the training I got in integrity started 19 years ago, when I was not yet a comedian. So I was able to apply that as I came into the world of entertainment, like from the word go. And what people don't see, or what many comedians don't get, and there are a few that I kind of am involved in I don't know if it's mentorship or what exactly it is, but standing for their transformation and development, is the role of integrity in doing this job. Because if the spokes of the wheel are missing, if you haven't done the preparation on the material, if you haven't, it's interesting, I was talking to a comedian 2 days ago who, there's been this whole thing of being a player, and a lot of people are attracted to this industry so they can be a player and fool around outside of their relationships, etc. And the way I was dealing with it with him was not inside of morality. It's like, I don't have any judgment about that. But you want to start to deal with the lack of integrity and the impact of that on the rest of your life, including your career, your comedy. Because just being up there, every time I operate without integrity, I become a smaller version of myself. So if I'm going to stand up on stage inside of, hey, I messed around in Hermanus with that, and I never told my wife, and I did, even though it was a little thing, it will start to erode who I am for myself.
I love that. Just repeat that. Every time I don't act in integrity, I become a lesser version of myself. Can we quote that? That is brilliant.
That's
not
so
for
me,
true.
That's from another guy.
Yes. And when you lose integrity, you lose everything.
Well, the other part, the part I think people miss about keeping your word, for example, is that it's possible to not keep your word and still honor your word. And I didn't know I'd promised it, but when I looked at the email for today, it said, please be here at 12:30. And I, by the way, one of the real things I wanted to thank you for being on the show today was that it allowed me to miss a 9-hour chess tournament with my kids. And that's where I left from to be here. And I was late. And that's being late is a big integrity issue for me. And I've realized that I can't always be on time. There will be things that happen and whatever. But I can always honor my word by phoning you and not knowing I had the wrong number for you. So I ended up speaking to her to say, I'm sorry, I'll be 15 minutes late.
Yes.
And then I'm not making myself wrong.
Yes, but people don't do that. So let's just go back and unpack the basics. It's about, if you say you're going to do something, do something. It's about punctuality. It's about living your truth. It's about being true to yourself. If you say you're going to email, do it. If you say, there's smaller little things when you unpack that. And people don't get it. There were some people also today I'm going to come, I'm going to be there. It's like, and then people let you down. They constantly don't get it. And what they don't understand is they're letting themselves down because we don't trust you. And if it's me, if you do that once or twice, don't ever contact me again. I become hectic with that. And people don't keep their word, and they don't understand.
Well, here's the interesting part. When I deal with people's lack of integrity, I don't bring morality to the conversation. Most people do.
Okay, so if someone lets you, not that they would.
Well, firstly, don't even see it as letting me down. I see it as you gave your word, you broke your word. Are you going to be accountable for that or not? If they're not, I actually don't have a problem with it. I don't make them wrong. That's morality. You did the wrong thing when you should have done the right thing. And if you're dealing with somebody, you can't hold somebody to account if you're making them wrong. They're not going to listen to you. They're dealing with your righteousness about what they did.
Do you think there's a sense of forgiveness as well for moments like that happen?
Absolutely,
just to let it go?
Yeah.
Okay, you see, that's where I'm intolerant. And I just,
That's what there is to work on for you, Charissa.
You let me down.
But I think it's so beautiful, though. I mean, there's so many different sides to it, because it's just, for me personally, I'm in a place now where I'm learning to forgive much quicker than I have before, because I would hold on to something and I would just hold on to it because that is my thing, because how dare you?
Yes.
And you actually just have to let it go, and you find when you let it go, so much comes back. Not that you're expecting it to, but it just does. It just opens up doors and everything just flows better.
That is true, because every negative thought you think has an impact.
You
on
block
your body.
yourself.
There was the immune system, and you can get, what can you get?
It's very
Right
interesting
about
with
it, but it's so
children,
true.
right?
Your body reacts to all the
Your body
negativity.
does,
Because children, like right now we're busy over the last couple of years coaching our 2 older boys in integrity. right? So Adam, who's 7, has just come back from London where he did a personal development program for kids. And he's now engaging with what is integrity. He's now engaging with what does it mean to keep your word. And then he'll call me on it. Dad, you gave me your word. And I'll train him on, yep, sometimes I won't keep my word and I'll clean that up with you. I'll clean up the mess. And that's me honoring my word.
Isn't that brilliant? 7-year-olds.
beautiful.
I wish more families would do that. More parents.
And the other thing is,
do that.
he walked out of his chess match an hour ago, right? And he nearly lost. Well, his opponent lost. So I said, did your opponent cry? Because they're 7 years old, they sometimes cry when they lose. And he was saying, yeah, sometimes I feel like crying when I lose, but I don't. And I was like, oh, but at home you do when you lose to your older brother. You got no issue with crying. What's that about? What did you learn in London? And he goes, oh yeah, it's just about looking good and avoiding looking bad. So I won't cry in public because it looks bad. And that's the reason most people won't own up to a lack of integrity, because they want to be admired and they figure if they admit.
But if they're true to themselves, which is part of integrity, then it is what it is, and be transparent.
Yeah,
So
when I
that's the other
say,
side of it.
listen, this thing happened in minus, there's another voice in my head going, don't tell people that on camera.
Yeah.
Yes, you know, people are. Yes.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
they go and misinterpret, yeah.
But it's something we kind of preconditioned to as well. And I just think that enough is enough, and we actually need to just get our voices heard and out there and say what we need to say. I mean, there's times when I cringe. I've got a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. And sometimes I find myself talking to people and just like letting out like everything that's going on. And I can see some people do this, that look. And I kind of doubt myself in that second, and I go, oh, maybe you shouldn't have said that. And actually, why not? It's not like I'm not hurting anyone here. It's just something I'm saying. But it's that preconditioning that we have, unfortunately. So we're all learning, though. That's why we're
Yes.
here. We're learning from each
Yes.
other as well.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. But when you speak your truth, you absolutely, it just frees you up. It's like, you don't have to be rude. You don't have to hurt anybody. But it is what it is. And I think society is just not honest enough and tell it like it is. This is what happened. This is how I feel. Sorry, we just can't tread on eggs. But changing it up a little bit, I have to just ask you, these roasts I see on TV. Nik, where's the integrity? These are the big stars that you've seen out there. They're roasting you. They're doing their best to put you down in public and everybody laughs. Surely that's got to get to someone on some stage. And where's the integrity? Do you have to humiliate someone and everyone laughs at you? I've never got that. Is it a socially acceptable thing to...
Well, these things
Have you been
emerged. I have not.
don't.
Yeah, like a little, but nothing official.
But that's not...
But this emerged in I think historically with the Friars Club roasts, and US comedians started this roast concept. And it was initially a club, and I think just comedians there. And it was accepted that was the rules of engagement, and I think these things have gone more and more extreme to appeal to TV audiences and things like that. And how it applies to me is I get invitations to be on roast panels, and I have declined on all of them because it lacks integrity for me. Yes. In terms of what my values, and I mean, I'll be with comedians and we'll be roasting each other and great, but there is a certain line for me which I feel is kind of people are expecting you to cross, and then people are going to say that stuff to me, and there's going to be there's going to be Holocaust jokes. I don't know what's going to come up, but then in that moment, am I going to go ha ha ha, or how am I going to deal? It's just not going to work for me. I don't have a judgment about it, but it just...
So thrilled you say that. Because, a negative thing that we say to people, a put down, it just sticks with us, no matter how strong you think your ego is. And you could just be going through something or feeling fragile, and someone's just put something out there in public about you, and it doesn't work for me.
Look, comedians
either.
also have very thick skins, and we are pretty weird. Most of us are pretty weird, and there's a sort of...
Well, that's what we love the most.
We understand we're going to say terrible things about each other, but we still love each other. So that's also part of the thing. The problem is often they bring non-comedians onto these panels as well.
People who don't have that thick skin, who don't understand.
And often the thing is even more offensive when it's not funny.
Yes, exactly. When they're being serious about hurting you and putting you down.
But that's because they're not funny. They could say the same thing and be really funny, and people go, that's great.
Sure.
You know what? I'm stepping away from integrity for a moment, and I'm just going back a bit.
Okay.
When did you discover you were funny and decided to do this as a...
I discovered I was funny, at 7 years old or 6, I was given the Ha Ha Bunk book, which is the sound of a man laughing his head off. Ha Ha Bunk. It's also the sound of other things that I won't mention. And I think I started reading these jokes out to my parents, and they laughed. And it wasn't until I was in my teens that I started regurgitating stories that I'd gotten from my godfather, who was a comedian, actor. And I used to tell them around campfires and things. So I knew I could tell a story and be funny.
And hold the audience and captivate. Yeah.
Well, I think I used to tell, I had this one long, there were a lot of them were Afrikaans stories because he grew up in Melkbos as a boerejood. And so I would tell long-winded stories. Ja, ons gaan jacht aan die bos en dit was skemers se tyd dat we die sondag ter die berge wegkry. Toe kan ek aan sing die blare wat so na's groot oor van die leeu se spier wat so wakker en vat my toe loop in die haal geweer. En as hy spring, dan skiet hom daar is nie maar fuck, frak op my voete. Kak ek my broek vol. And anyway. And then my friends would be like, "Bro, I don't know what you're talking about, but it's quite funny." And but it wasn't until 24 or 5, I think, that I decided I'm going to actually give this a go seriously.
And then you started out in small little clubs
Yeah.
and wrote your own material, and then...
Yeah. I wrote my own material, which was bad for a long time. And then I started collaborating with people on my material to make sure that it was going to work.
Nick, it's about timing, because I watch a lot of comedy shows. Gosh, giving all my... It's all about timing, because some have got the most brilliant jokes, and if they don't have the timing right, or they speak too fast, or they don't wait for the audience, or the audience doesn't... Yeah, it's such an art, and you've managed to develop that so brilliantly.
I think that also for me, what stands out is that a great comedian is a storyteller, and that's the foundation of it. You can tell the stories great, and then you'd find the rhythm, you know, like
And
you're
then you
talking
keep-
about
then
with
you're
your
on a roll,
punchlines
yes.
and engaging with audience and bouncing off them, and it becomes this relationship and this like to and fro, and that's how you actually get that full story out with the comedy.
Well, it's interesting because more and more, I went through a phase where a lot of it was satirical and political stuff.
I love those, by the way,
And,
I must say.
The last few years it's become, I think after I turned 40, I started writing stuff that was more personal and literally stories things that have happened to me that somehow are even funnier for me because I was there, it happened. People are like, that couldn't have happened. Yes, it did happen.
You know, I'm just asking, at what point do you think we've got some audience members here who's dying to ask Nick something, because we
I can tell you the South African studio audiences generally
Are they quiet?
don't want to ask anything because they're not dying to ask, they're dying of embarrassment if they do ask.
And they don't have any integrity because they're not going to speak their truth, so they're going to sit on it and go home and say, I wish I'd asked.
Well, it might
Nick
have
this."
integrity. Somebody here might have given their promise to not say anything today, and then they're going to keep that promise. That has integrity. Yes, here's a question.
Scared of you?
I don't know if I'm loud enough. Is there a topic or a theme that you steer clear of because you think it hurts people in the comedian sense? So if people go to a show to laugh, and it's difficult with the South African public, we have so many things that are difficult.
Triggering.
Yeah. So is there something that you steer clear of?
Not really. I mean, I want to write a show about race and racism, and I haven't quite worked out how to do a full show, but I think that'll be my next show. And it's something that I think a lot of my white audiences will feel very uncomfortable with, but I think I'm ready to do something like that. I had this piece in my last show about suicide that some people wanted to shut down my show for because they were offended that I was making fun of suicide. What happened was I got a call to be part of a search and rescue operation for a suicidal man on Table Mountain. And I ended up running after this guy for 20 minutes around the forest and eventually convinced him to come down the mountain. And it turned into this probably 20 minutes of comedy, but it's not, I'm dealing with this other pandemic of anxiety and depression that we currently face, and I'm dealing with it in a humorous way. I'm not trying to make fun of people who want to commit suicide. So there are some topics that are more delicate that you look at and go, how am I going to tackle that? Not just with like 3 minutes of jokes, but like thematically a whole deal with it. And some things require more thought than others.
I mean, I think we need to laugh about the coronavirus. We need to laugh about load shedding, because those things are affecting us now. But I suppose there are some deeper things that specific audiences might not.
Or would be too sensitive.
Yeah, exactly.
Larry David, I saw this thing with him recently where I don't know, it was something about Trump in the new Curb Your Enthusiasm, whatever, and the presenter said, aren't you worried about alienating yourself? Something like that, alienating yourself from your audience or from these particular Americans or whatever. And he was like, that's the point! Like, I think he was talking to other comedians about, you have my blessing, go and alienate yourselves. And I think that's the job of comedy as well.
Nik, I think for a lot of people out there who literally want to walk in your shoes, don't you have any sort of words of advice? I'm sure you get this asked so many times.
You know what the thing is about advice, Charissa?
Well,
they say it's the worst vice.
Just a little bit of a snippet. You've got quite a bit of life experience, so obviously that coupled with what you've everything that you've dealt with on a day-to-day basis, and being where you are, and just the maturity that you've reached.
Yes.
Anything that you'd like to.
Well, there's a couple, as I mentioned earlier. There's a few young comedians that I'm interacting with right now, including one guy who's actually. He was meant to do his very first gig this week. I met him outside a show. He was looking after cars. He was basically a car guard for cash, extra cash. He's a student. His parents are Congolese refugees. And I met him outside this place in Durbanville. The next day, I came to do another show. At the end of that show, I saw him walk out of the theater. The guy was looking at the cars last night. I was like, what were you doing in the theater? He was like, no, I came to watch your show. I was like, oh. I mean, he's like, yeah, I paid for a ticket to watch your show. And I started this conversation with this kid, he's 19, and realized, hang on, this guy's super articulate. He's got this analytical mind. He can write. And we started looking at his training and development. And one of the things, he told me these series of jokes about his dad, and they were masking. I was like, what is this masking? Because it seems like there's some pain here. No, I haven't really spoken to my dad for 6 years. I don't know what the exact situation was. But this week he was getting complete with his dad and going to see his dad and forgiving him and giving up all the resentment. So something I heard recently from Jeff Garlin is like, anger and comedy actually work hand in hand, because you often see a comedian go, you know what really, and this thing, and it kind of works because it ramps the thing up emotionally and whatever. And he was saying, anger's great on stage, but it's got no place in your life off stage. So what I often say to these young comedians is let's deal with what's not working in your life, where your integrity's out. Get the integrity in all areas of your life. Bring the integrity to the comedy, to the discipline of writing. If you say you're going to write, you need to do what you said you're going to do, so that there is workability, so that the spokes in the bicycle wheel are there, and you're building a bike which you can then ride for the next 20 years.
And I know that you mentioned that you don't have any upcoming shows, but is there anything that we can look forward to perhaps by...
Integrity
Yes, the Integrity Talks show, yes.
I mean, the integrity material.
But in terms of like something that the audience can kind of, must they just keep an eye out on your social media just to connect with you and just see what's happening? Because I know you said you are taking a slight break.
They must follow me. But not on social media. They must literally
follow you, like stalk you.
That is my dream.
Done.
Listen, and I say that because I say that as one of. I was born in 1976, in the dark days, and my dad lived in a converted stable. I was literally born in a converted stable, so I'm only one of 2 Jewish boys in the last 2,000 odd years. And I still have less followers. So
that stable
help me with that.
That stable was in Constantia.
Yes, it was. So, what's your point, Charissa?
And your social media, how can we get a hold of you?
Social
there?
media?
Yeah, what's your social
I'm not
media
that active on
contact?
social
You're
media.
not that active.
But it's my name and surname.
Okay.
Nik with a K. Because of the Russian heritage. Lithuania was part of Russia at the time. It's now Lithuania. So if you left before 1919, after 19, you can get a passport, because they were like, oh, what bad, here's a passport. But before that was part of Russia. So that's why, that's a long way of saying it's Nik with a K. Nikolai Grigorovich Romanovich Rabinowitz the Third.
Okay.
Also known as Noodle. Hi, Mom.
No, I said you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram.
I'm on Facebook, Instagram.
Just not very active.
What's the other thing?
Twitter.
Twitter, yes. No, I don't tweet, but I'm there. No.
You'd make the funniest tweets.
I
Why
used to,
don't you
yeah.
tweet? It's
I
too
don't know.
time
So
consuming.
I got 3 kids and a dog and a cat.
Ooh, yeah, it keeps you busy.
Don't you know?
I know all about that.
So we are so grateful. I'm not going to let this go. Is there any chance you would think of a show about integrity and
Yes.
Okay.
see that on camera?
And now also we've recorded this, so we can be like, hey, Nik, remember what you said? Yeah, no.
Yes.
We're holding it to it.
Because Nik, before I was a psychologist, I
You got to be
wasn't- I
very
was an
careful
actress,
about giving
so I
your word to
also want
somebody. But luckily, she only asked me if I would think about it.
Well done.
So that has
You
integrity.
see? You must watch it. You must watch it.
And he's thought about it. No, sorry.
There you go. Thank you so much for taking the time out to join us today. We really value your time. We know that you're extremely busy and a family man. And we didn't mean to take you away from.
I'm so
from
glad
that.
you did.
Oh, are you glad? Okay. Okay.
I'm
But
deeply grateful, in fact.
anytime. Just let us know. But thank you so much. It's been inspirational, and I think personally I've taken a lot away from this year today. I'm sure the audience has as well, and I know Charissa has too. And I feel like I must like go back and start learning all over again, like what it means to live your life with integrity, because you kind of really hit a couple of things.
Well,
very
I'll tell
hard
you what
there,
Werner
so-
Erhard said. He said, integrity is like a mountain with no top. You have to enjoy the climb.
Love that.
Gosh, Nik, I didn't realize it was going to be such a deep conversation. I would have prepared better.
I think she was well prepared.
Yeah,
Thank you.
but you've led us down a whole journey, and it's been absolutely fascinating speaking to you.
It's a great
Honestly, I
pleasure.
think
It's
I
actually
can't thank
it's
you enough.
something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, because people see this one side of me, funny ha-ha guy. But as you mentioned early on, there's another side, and my sort of idea is to stop marrying the two.
Yes. And I have to commend you for teaching the children. I mean, absolutely. I salute you about talking about that I word in your home and integrity and what it means. So yeah.
It can
thank
come
you.
back to bite you on the bum, parents.
And we need to write a book about it, a little children's book with drawings and everything. Any graphic artists here, let's do. But thank you. And you don't know what it means to us. This is our second show, and we are so grateful.
No,
and
listen,
thank
it's
you
great
for your
what you're
time.
doing. May it go from strength to strength.
And thank you so much to you for joining us here today. And we have a phenomenal guest that's coming up next. Looking so forward to this one. You know, if we manage to get Nik here, who knows who's going to be here. So we're going to be back again at the Protea Hotel Breakwater Lodge right here at the waterfront. Looking forward to having you join us again. And thank you to our audience as well. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.